This episode of Minor Obsession is brought to you by the UNC Charlotte Belk College of Business, North Carolina's urban research business school. As alumni of the Belk College ourselves, we encourage you to visit belkcollege.uncc.edu and learn how Charlotte's business school can inspire your career path. What's going on, Niner Nation? Welcome to a solo edition of Minor Obsession. That's right, just Sean Newton this week. No Scott Lieberman. He is off gallivanting in London. You may have seen some of the pics we posted along the way. He was finding really cool spots that had 49er-related things, even all the way in London, Great Britain. But if you're a fan of bad takes, you might want to tune out now because Scott's bad takes are over in London with him. So you're just getting me for today, which means no fun back and forth banter, but lots of good stuff to get into. We've got basketball going on and all the spring sports going on, so I'm going to touch on as much of it as I can, including the combine too. So let's get right into it. First and foremost, women's basketball is on a tear. They've won 6 in a row now, recently knocking off FIU in a super defensive contest, 49-31. Love them scoring 49 points exactly. 2 games left in the season, one against Western Kentucky, the other one against Middle Tennessee State. That's Western Kentucky away on the 5th, and then Middle Tennessee State at home on the 7th. And the women are set up nice going into the Conference USA tournament. Currently in 4th behind ODU, Rice, and Western Kentucky. They already knocked off ODU. They already knocked off Rice. They got a chance at Western Kentucky this week and have a potential to make it all the way up to 3rd heading into the conference tournament if they win the next 2, and potentially even 2nd or 1st, depending on how ODU and Rice finish out the season. They are, I guess, they're just out of reach of those 2. So ODU and Rice are 14-2. We're 11-5, 2 games left. So I guess they can't quite catch them, but definitely can set themselves up for 3rd place in the Conference USA tournament if they knock off Western Kentucky and Middle Tennessee State, who are the 2 teams competing with us for those top-tier spots. And got to feel really good with the way this team's playing. Anytime you can roll off 6 in a row, and I think if you date back, we're close to like 9 or 10 out of the last 11, which is just unbelievable. It's a great stretch. When we talked to Coach Consuegra a few weeks ago, she mentioned that, even as we started Conference USA slower than she wanted, all of the games super close and highly contested games where they felt like they could win any of them. You heard Mike Hill say last week that he feels like this team is primed for success, primed to win the Conference USA tournament, primed to head to the NCAA tournament for the first time in a long time. And got to tell you, it's exciting to watch. They're really fun to watch. If you haven't tuned in, be sure you catch these next couple games and then follow them going into the Conference USA tournament. It's a great team we have this season, and a lot of people able to return next year too. So really excited about the product on the floor. We'll keep an eye on Western Kentucky and Middle Tennessee this week and let you know how we're sitting headed into the Conference USA tournament. Maybe even try and get Coach Consuegra or one of her counterparts back on for next episode to give you a preview of what we're looking at heading into the tournament. Moving on to men's basketball, tough stretch here, moved into bonus play, got a really good road win against Western Kentucky just after we talked to Mike Hill last time, 72-70. That was a highly contested battle, really fun to watch. Last second layup made by Jordan Shepard to ice the game. Really great to see, especially on the road since we've had so much trouble on the road. But then we come home and face a tough FIU team who shoots really well. They're the best shooting team in the conference, or at least they were a few weeks ago. And held close, first half, back and forth. Didn't love the way FIU plays. I think everybody's got their own opinions. I'm not sure how many of you out there feel like me, but I think FIU's really quickly becoming one of my most hated teams in the conference. I don't like how feisty they are, how in your face they are. I think the way they play causes them to get away with a lot of fouls that are regularly called, but when that's how you play defense, I mean, the entire team would be fouled out by the end of the game if the refs blew the whistle on every time. And I think that's the difference between the two matches. The first time around, the refs blew the whistles early and often, the first time we played them and took them down, and they also shot poorly. This time around, not so much foul calling in the first half, and then the second half they finally started to blow the whistles, ended up getting into double bonus for Charlotte, but still a lot of contact, a lot of bodying, and it's a little frustrating to see things like that go uncalled, especially when you see refs call touch fouls in one game and then let so much go the next game. But in reality, the way we shot and the way we played, I mean, defensively I thought we played pretty well, but way too many turnovers, way too uncomfortable by the press and the heightened defense that FIU was playing. They had a really good game plan coming into it to try and knock us off balance. That led to just 2 3-pointers made, which was 12%, and from the field, only 35% overall. So tough shooting match anytime you're shooting that poorly. We saw some of this early in the season too. Anytime you're shooting that poorly, it's really tough to keep up with teams, especially when your whole game plan is to work through the shot clock, find the easy bucket, find the person open from the play that you've got designed. It's really tough when you're down 20 with 5 minutes left to go to claw back when you can't make a bucket and your play schemes run out the clock every time as a shot clock trying to maximize possession. So just kind of got into too big of a hole. I don't know how you feel, but heading into the conference tournament, I have them with a little check mark on them as the team that I want to see us knock off or hopefully never even have to play them. But definitely quickly becoming one of my least liked teams in Conference USA for sure. And you can call that salty if you want, but definitely didn't like the performance on either side of the ball last time. Still have 2 games left to go. Still have a shot at that first round bye for the conference tournament. Right now, FIU pulled into the lead ahead of us and are listed as 4th in the standings while we're listed as 5th. So if everything ended today, they would get the bye. But we're tied record-wise. We have 2 games left. They have 2 games left. Ours against North Texas at home on Wednesday night at 7, so be sure and come out for that. And then Louisiana Tech to end the season on the 7th, next Saturday, in Louisiana. So between those two, if we can knock off both those teams, we should be still in pretty good position to get a first-round bye. I don't think FIU is going to go undefeated to end the season, but if they do, we'll see how it all shakes out with the standings and everything. Everybody else is a little too far out to catch, so I think the best we can finish at this point after the loss is 4th. But either way, top pod, as Mike talked about last week, being in the top pod this year versus the bottom pod last year, and fighting for a first-round bye is a really good spot to be. So we'll see how the season finishes out, and hopefully the men continue to push forward and show some really good resiliency here and knock off 2 in a row to get some momentum heading into the tournament. Another exciting thing that happened this week, Combine, was really cool to see Alex Highsmith, Benny Lemay, Cam Clark all show up and perform well. Really impressed with all of them. I think that they all helped out their draft stock coming into the week and performing the way they did. Alex Highsmith obviously is teed up to be, I think, our highest draft pick ever. He's one of the top defensive ends in this draft and showed what he could do on the field. Everybody I saw from reporters all said the number one thing they took away is how focused and confident he is in the drills that they ran. So his 40 numbers, things like that, were all good. He was 4th best among defensive linemen for the 40 time. But beyond that, just the focus and the strength and ability that he showed in the individual drills seemed like it really impressed people. So I'm excited to see what that works out for him. Benny, another one who looked like he helped his draft stock pretty well. 4th highest among running backs for bench press, ran a 4.75 40, 28.5 vertical, 9 feet 3 inch broad jump. Excited to see how that works out for him. And then Cam Clark, our offensive lineman. We had Nate Davis last year. Now we've got Cam Clark going into this draft. He had a 5.29 40, 25 inch vertical, and 8-foot 4-inch broad jump with 26 bench presses, which I think was good for third or fourth in the offensive lineman category in terms of bench press. So exciting to see. The draft's still a bit away, so I think it's in April if I remember correctly. It's going to be in Vegas. Players are going to be shuttled in on boats out in front of the Borgata, which is really cool, or I guess Bellagio, which is really cool to see. I'm excited to see the theatrics. Hopefully we see our players' names get called off the board early and often. And I think the other really cool point here is that we were tied for North Carolina schools for most draft combine invites this year. We had 3, Wake Forest had 3. So that means even in Healy's first year, and give some credit to Lambert and his staff before that who brought these individuals in and helped them become huge performers. But even in Healy's first year, we're already performing comparable and better than our peers. So NC State, Chapel Hill, Duke, they're not sending 3 people to the combine this year. We did, and I'm really excited, proud about that. And hopefully that type of combine sending continues on as we see Healy start to really get a chance to get his own recruits in the door along the way and build the program how he wants to build it. So moving on to spring sports, a lot of stuff going on there too. We'll start with baseball. Baseball's currently 8-4 and looking really good. They started off the season a little shaky. They started off 1-4, but since then they swept UMBC and they swept St. John. So they have 2 sweeps under the Coach Woodard era so far. 8-4 is a beautiful place to be sitting, and I think starting off the season that way really shows the analytics side of it that he's built in, where he's focusing on players' statistical abilities and how to make those work in favor of what the team needs, and we'll see how that shakes out the rest of the year. Currently coming up, we've got a road trip to Coastal Carolina on March 3rd, and then a big home series against number 25 in the country, East Carolina, March 6th, 7th, and 8th. That's this upcoming weekend. So if you don't have plans or you do have plans, cancel them, get out to the Hayes, be sure you're supporting the baseball team. Huge home series against number 25, Eastern Carolina, and we'll see how that shakes out. After that, we've got North Carolina State, so another big in-state rival. Love knocking off in-state teams when we can, and excited to see what comes from baseball. Softball, similar story, looking pretty solid as well. They're sitting at 11-10 and have had some really good wins along the way. Nice to see Coach Chastain in her first season really turning the ship around. I think Mike mentioned it last week that last season we were well below 500. So to start this season at 500 or above is really impressive. They just came off a tough black and garnet challenge down in South Carolina, getting swept down there by Troy in South Carolina, but headed over to Clemson this week on March 4th, and then at home versus Florida Atlantic March 6th, 7th, and 8th. So really exciting chance this weekend to see both men's baseball and women's softball this weekend. Get a chance to maybe swap between the two, have a full day full of bat and ball sports, as they say, and excited to see how that season continues. Moving on now, tennis, men's sitting at 5-5, but the one I really want to talk about is women's tennis team because they are just being dominant right now. They're 10-4 overall and just knocked off Appalachian State, who is number 49 in the national rankings, which I believe is our highest rated win to date for the women's program. So congrats to Coach Davison and the women's team. Really excited to see what you're doing out there. And we've got some other tough road matches coming up. We've got Florida Atlantic March 5th, FIU March 7th, and then Long Island on March 8th. So tough little stretch of traveling there before we have some more home trips. But it's amazing to see what they're doing. They're really focused in, winning points where it matters, and even when number 1, number 2 are being knocked off by the other team, the lower seeds on the team are stepping up and winning their matches to be able to give us enough points to get the overall team victory. So Loving what I see there. Hoping to see more wins along the way and potentially start to see women's tennis climb that ITA rankings up into the top 50 maybe themselves. One more that's just now kicking off, golf. They just started this past week or two. So the men actually had a really impressive start to the spring season with the Palm Desert Invitational out in, I guess, Wyoming, and finished second out of 21. So a nice way to start off. They have the Auburn Tiger Invitational coming up March 8th, 9th, and 10th. So be sure you tune in. Keep an eye on Twitter, other spots that post men's golf scores, because we've got a really good shot to make a good run this spring season for men's golf. And women's golf doing their thing too. Already just very young in the program, as we've talked about in the past, and starting off this spring season with a tied for fourth finish out in Long Beach for the Gold Rush, and now headed to the Valspar Augusta Invitational. So that's coming up on March 14th and 15th. Keep an eye out there. Women's team, again, primed for success, hoping to see multiple people in the NCAA tournament this year, and maybe even team performance there. And then one more item of note to talk about. Track and field just finished off their indoor season. If you didn't take a look, I'd go out, watch some highlights, take a look at all the individual performance we have. But continuing the domination that we've seen for years now, honestly, season after season, we seem to be in the running for top spots in Conference USA, which is really impressive. Men took gold in the indoor track and field competitions, and the women took bronze. So awesome to see there. And then Keon Howell got male performer of the meet, which is really impressive as well in its own right. He won gold for pole vaulting with a meet record 17 feet 7.75 inches, and took bronze in the high jump with 6 feet 9 inches. It's impressive. Can well clear me just in a normal jump off the ground, which is insane. But congrats, Keon. Congrats to the entire track and field and cross-country team. Love to see the indoor meet win again. Had some really good performances last year. Obviously, the outdoor meets are now coming up, and would love to see that dominance continue and maybe even take home a gold for the outdoor as well as we close out the spring season for track and field. So that's all the updates we have. Again, some really key stuff coming up, especially if you're on the basketball train, trying to see how the season finishes out. We'll try and get a couple coaches on for next week to give you an idea of what the Conference USA tournament looks like, what the seeding is, what the game plans are, all those types of things. We'll see if Scott comes back. I don't know. Maybe he's too busy in London to talk about the Niners, but he should be back on next week, give you a little more banter, a little more ability to hear, again, some bad takes coming out of his mouth. Who knows? But I know he's been excited for the men's and women's teams. We both have really high hopes here, and so excited to see how that works out. And I think most of the games, if not all the games, should be streamable. So look forward to some pre-March Madness, where you can, during the day, stream some Niners games for men's and women's basketball as we head to the tournament. That's all I got. If you want to reach out to us, give us some ideas, give us some thoughts on your own takes on how the Niners are doing. I know we're always super positive, but we try and stay as realistic as we can. I mean, if I wasn't on the radio right now, I'd still be saying the same thing. I love the Niners. I think that we are primed for success in most of our sports. I mean, think about how many competing programs we have right now. It's just amazing, especially with where we were at just a few short years ago. So sky's the limit in my mind, but if you've got different thoughts or want to hear us talk about certain things, feel free to reach out. Always on social media, minor_obsession. We're also on email, minorobsession49@gmail.com, and happy to hear from any fans who want to discuss any exciting Niner stuff. But until then, as always, wear green and go Niners.